And welcome to Angel Heart Radio. It is fantastic to be back. I sort of realized today when I updated the show topic, theme, subject, whatever, that my goodness me, it's been 2 months. Janet, we did the last show for me in at the end of last year, and now we're starting 2024 together, which is really exciting.
It is. It's hard to believe 2024 when you look at those numbers on the calendar, you're like, wow, weren't we just all in a panic over Y2K? That was 24 years ago. I
I
don't know.
know. And at that
Where's
stage, I was thinking, oh my goodness, say 2007, I couldn't even comprehend that. And now it's 2024. It's like, wow.
right? I was watching a TV show and it must have been from the early 2000s because they had these BlackBerry phones with they were called Blackberries. And
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, that is so old. Things have come so far so fast, right? Technologically, culturally, socially. I mean, life is way different than it was even just, I don't know, 5 years ago, for God's sakes.
Well, that's right. And I sort of look at Jetsons, the TV show, and it used to be about the future. And yet, so many of those things, and Get Smart. He used to talk to his wristwatch and pick up his shoe and talk to,
Yep, yep,
and
yep, yep.
that's what's happening now.
It is pretty amazing. And, you know, the the general uh, trend is toward innovation and invention and that type of thing. And it's just amazing to me that, I mean, we're just a month into the year and how many things I've already seen that are pulling us into this really amazing future. Just before you and I came on, I saw a news
Mhm.
story that came across about a new way to fight cancer. And I'm like, well, why not? Right? They're just targeting it in our cells, which is different than what it's always been in the past. I really true, and on Star Trek, those shows where they had this little tricorder thing and they just held it over your head or wherever it was you needed healing and you got the healing. I mean, we're inching ever closer to things like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yes. It is amazing. It's a very exciting time, I believe, to be living on this planet.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say we won't face challenges in all of this. I mean, there's the ever-present AI and the quandary over how far do we take that? Um, how
Sure.
much do we watch over, that information and what's being put out there in the world through AI? I saw
Hmm.
I got an email yesterday from the state of Washington, the state I live in, that said they were setting up a task force to monitor their response to AI and how far the state would go in terms of regulating artificial intelligence. I think a lot of places are grappling with that from a governmental level, from an institutional level, education, et cetera, about how far do they take AI. So
Hmm.
that is, there are those on one end that say, let's go all the way. And then there are those at the other end that go, wait, not so fast, right? Do we really need that? And somewhere in the middle, we have to find the way forward with that. And I'm assuming other technologies will come along that will test our ability to regulate, or should we regulate as we move further into the 2020s and on into the 2030s.
Yes. Now, Christine Buckingham has joined us,
Hi,
and
Christine.
so hello, Christine. And she says AI needs regulation, which is,
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
don't you think it's very similar, like Facebook, social media? There is a
Mhm.
place for social media. It can be brilliant. On the other hand, it can be destructive. And it's how we use these
Yeah, absolutely.
technologies. Mm.
And, like almost any technology, though, we're going to come into that. that kind of feeling of the regulation, like how far do we regulate? And there's
Mm,
always movements abroad to limit regulation, right? It's going to be
mm,
a perennial sort of struggle that we are encountering in
mhm.
this time of Pluto and Aquarius. And yet we have been prepared for this all of our lives. I mean, we've seen this coming, right? And not just in astrology, but the world is always moving forward. I think about what my parents would think now about cell
Yeah.
phones,
Yes.
right? And my parents, I mean, I'm in my 60s. They'd have been, if they were still alive, they'd be in their 80s or close to 90. And what a miracle that might seem to them, or how unnecessary would it seem to them, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't live without my cell phone at this point in time, right? It's everywhere. I do everything on it. I can't
Right.
imagine that my parents, what they would have thought about this.
Mm.
So, and then there's the younger guys, right? My millennial group and my what are the next group, the Gen Zs, that
Mhm.
they're so adept at technology
Yeah.
and
Oh,
they have,
aren't they? Mm.
yeah, like I needed to know how to do something the other day and I called my granddaughter and I said, Mackenzie, how do I do this? And so on FaceTime, she walks me through how to make the setting correct in my phone. It was amazing. I'm like, I probably could have figured that out, but it just didn't want to come really quickly. But these younger generations, they're really moving in that direction. And I think we have to be aware that there's these
Mhm.
different groups of people at different, points in their evolution of consciousness that are ready for technology and some that are not.
Mm. Yes. Now, Pauline uh, has joined us.
Hi,
Pauline
Pauline.
is Blanner.
Yeah,
So,
she is. She's a client of mine. Hello.
yes, yes, I gathered that. She says, hello, Janet, and Angel Heart Radio. So, thank you, Pauline. Christine, thank you so much for your comments. Laws against misuse for slanderous or propagandist purposes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the brutality that can happen in social media, and that's unfortunate.
Mm.
Because there's always, even with your phone, I mean, how many calls a day or emails a day do you get that are of a scam sort of nature? Um, I think some people are always going to push the envelope and they're going to take it into the negative territory, but that doesn't mean that the technology itself isn't a good technology or isn't a good program or platform. It means, though, that we have to find ways to be able to regulate it, you know, in a way that is going to be workable for everybody. So, and that's part of the age that we're in an astrological sense, with Pluto moving into Aquarius. There are a lot of years ahead of us till 2044 with
Ah,
Pluto in the sign that represents the future, that represents those cutting edge technologies that pushes that envelope. So I would say that, at this point, sitting here today, I don't even know that I could calculate all the different problematic things that could come up based on technologies, right? That we just have to be aware and to deal with them as they come up. But Pluto in Aquarius is the big news because on January 20th, that he moved into Aquarius. He will jaunt back into Capricorn for a couple of months later in the fall of this year, and then move again back into Aquarius, where he will be until 2044. So what we're really
wow.
seeing, and this is why I like to watch the news, right? I don't like to watch the news, but I like to watch the stories that come across my feed because they really tell us the temperature, if you will, of what's happening with this Pluto and Aquarius. Of course, a news person is never going to say, "Oh, and this is because of Pluto and Aquarius," but I know sitting back here that we're seeing the dawning of an entirely new age. Or if it's not the dawning, it is the bigger step into that age of Aquarius, which will be with us, well, for 26,000 years or so, right? The ages go
Wow.
by
Yeah.
slowly. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because
And
the Age of Aquarius was a song way back in the 60s, wasn't it? When Hair came
yes,
out.
yeah. I don't remember the song coming out then, but I've heard it many times since. And
Well,
so on a conscious level, we were already looking at this and what
mm,
would it mean for our future. And as we look ahead to 2024, perhaps the biggest gift, biggest strength that we could all gain from the year is learning how to pivot. And by pivot, I mean change, really, because we are being presented in every kind of way that you can imagine um, in how we have to change or how we have to confront the energy of change. And we have to be willing and able to pivot on a moment's notice because that's how life is throwing things at us. And for instance, the transiting North Node, which is our collective destiny, like how we're
mhm.
moving forward. It is sitting at the gate 51 in our human design, which is called the gate of awakening, or colloquially, we call it the gate of shock. And it is a place where all of us are being impacted by shocking things, one after another, perhaps. They don't have to be big shocks. Like it doesn't have to be the earth opening up and swallowing us kind of shock. Although I dare say some people are getting bigger shocks, but little things. And when those little things come up, it causes us to have to pivot, move, change, go with the flow, and be willing to not hold on tooth and nail to something that no longer exists, right? Or
Mm.
to a change that we're being asked to take in. That's hard. That's hard for people.
That is, isn't it? I mean, we can really hold on. May I welcome Stephanie, another one of your followers, Janet, to
Hello, Stephanie.
our show. Lovely to have you, Stephanie. And Christine has said that Fifth Dimension sang the Age of Aquarius, apparently. And Pauline is very grateful that she's mutable.
Indeed, Pauline, and as well as I am a mutable sign, meaning I'm already used to the change and the flow and the pivoting. But,
Mhm.
there are other signs out there not so used to that. And there are parts of your charts, parts of your life where there are fixed signs those parts of your life can be where the resistance to change is demonstrated for each person. So, we have signs like Taurus and actually Aquarius, believe it or not, is a fixed sign. It is not a sign that takes up the cause of change very easily. Only as it would advance the future would Aquarius, if it was inventive, if it was innovative, yes. But just change for the sake of change, not so much. It's a fixed sign, meaning it likes to stay the course. It does so with an eye to the future, but those earth signs and those fixed signs really crave stability. And stability is one thing our planet does not have right now.
Right. Well, how evident is that, Janet, with all of the volcanoes that have been erupting?
Volcanoes. Just this month in my area, we were down in single digit temperature. So in Fahrenheit, that's cold, right? And
Yeah.
today I'm up in 55-degree territory, which is not temperatures we see this time of year. That's usually June kind of temperatures. It was
Sure.
warmer in the day today than it is in the nights during the summer. And I mean, that's
Wow.
a wide swing of temperatures. That's like a 50-degree swing, 55-degree swing in
Hmm.
temperatures. And, one day it's stormy. Then the next day it's not. The next day the power's out. The next day it's your internet that's out.
Mm,
All of these things, they're just sort of, we're sort of ragdolling around. And sometimes that is very difficult to deal with because it interrupts everything that we're doing. It
mm,
interrupts our flow. It causes us to feel unstable. It feels like there's no earth beneath our feet, right? That we
Mm,
can trust. And that's really disconcerting to people. But it's exactly what we need right now because we have to upend the unsustainability of the world that we've created, that we've built,
hmm
right? So we've been through this. In human design, we have 400-year cycles, and we're coming to the end of a 400-year cycle in 2027, or the beginning of a new one in 2027. And that cycle has built this huge society, this bureaucracy of intricate government workings, of institutions, the medical institution, the educational, the military, the you name the system. Those have all been built out of our time period of administration, right? Where we were creating the structures, the forms that would support a growing society. But it got too complex, right? And then a simple thing like Pluto moving into Capricorn in 2008 totally sends the economy down and tanks it, the stock market, the mortgages, and all of that. So we see how the nature of our creations over the previous 400 years aren't sustainable. So we have to pivot. Here's that pivot again. Now we have to, like, what do we take from the past that is worth keeping as we move forward? And then how do we create more stability, or how do we create a more sustainable future as we move forward here? So now that's a bigger picture, but it's also impacting us on our, human, personal level, right? We all have these planets and energies in our charts somewhere, so it's
hmm
impacting us in our lives. So personally, we're also being asked to pivot, to change toward a direction that really supports who we are at soul level. Um, the things that are really near and dear to our hearts that we want to take and do, right?
hmm
So no longer can we keep putting those things off, right? There's been this sense in the world, I mean, like going way back into time, of duty and having to do work and having to do even things that you didn't necessarily want to do. No one was really out there going, is that the thing that you really love? Is that what you would really love to do? But now the energies are completely different and they're really more focused on, well, what makes you happy? Right? What could you
hmm
do right now that would make you excited about life? What would restore your passion about living? And that's a new conversation on the planet. So that also causes us to pivot, to shift, right? We have to shift into a different way of thinking about who we are and what we do and who we want to do it with. Where do we want to do it? Do we want to do it at all? That kind of thing. So that in it of itself creates a little bit of an upheaval, of a disconcerting feeling moving through people. Everybody, topsy turvy.
We've got people, it's just wonderful people who are joining us. Anayah has joined us and she is saying, what wonderful information, Janet. Makes perfect sense. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Right down to the power outages. There in Brisbane, there has been two in 3 days. It's amazing that they seem to be not just in certain areas. It's
No.
something that's affecting us all over the world.
Right. Take a look
And
at the sun. How is the sun behaving in all of this? Right. It's
right,
throwing out solar flares and CMEs one after the other. And that is a symptom. Those things are change agents, those particles that come streaming in, create a lot of chaos, potential chaos. It doesn't have to be all chaos all the time, but
right.
at times it is definitely that. And
Mhm.
it shakes us out of our reverie.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now,
Mhm.
Lacey has joined us. And so has Robin Mills. So
Hel-
thank you to these people who are here and are making comments about
Mhm.
this pivoting, Janet. I like that word. I think what comes to my mind is pirouette.
Pirouette. Yep,
How
pirouette.
we're
We could call it that if you
dancing
would like
around.
to. Uh-huh. Pivot, shift, change, transform. These are all the words of the time that we are living in. And they're not necessarily comfortable words because of the nature of humanity. We like to stay where we are. We like to be safe. We like to be warm. We like to be dry. I do like to get on the internet. And when the power goes out, I don't have internet. Can't even use my phone where I live with
Mm.
when the power is out. So those things, they really upend things. And, so what we've been really talking about is how these big changes are causing us as humanity or as a collective to learn the art of pivoting. But we also have some February events that are important in all of this because we're in February starting tomorrow, or you're already in February where you are. Um, that are things that we need to be aware of because now those personal planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, are all coming in to meet Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So the 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 personal planets are the ones that really impact us as individuals, right? The big planets beyond Mars, so Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're 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 transpersonal or collective, right? They're far enough out that we don't experience them on sort of a daily basis. But those inner planets are always moving much quicker. So those are the ones that impact us. And as each one of them goes to meet Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, it's like this handshake taking place, right? They, the planet Mercury is the first one on February 5th. It moves into Pluto's territory. And that conjunction could be how it is that we need to up level or upgrade our communication, our minds. What do we have to relinquish in our minds? What do we have to upgrade in our minds? And that handshake is sort of the hello, welcome to Zero Aquarius, welcome to the new age. And now what are you going to do with it? Right? Mercury will take
Mm.
that meeting and move on through Aquarius and on into Pisces and throughout the rest of the zodiac. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, Mars comes in and does the handshake with Pluto. Mars is about action, about what are we going to do and how are we going to perform and where are we going? It is a very forward momentum kind of planet. So now his cozying up to Pluto is really going to be more about now what action do we need to take? Where are we going? What's the invention? What's the innovation? What's the next step? Right. And again, it's a personal planet. So it is tempting all of us to take those next steps. What comes next? What are
Mm.
you going to do? Not not in the mind as far as what do you want to think. That was Mercury going through there, but now Mars is going to say, okay, now you're going to take those ideas and that inspiration and you're going to bring it in, you're going to plant it on the ground and you're going to do something about it. And then on February 17th, Venus meets up with Pluto again at 0 degrees of Aquarius. This is a very tender degree, by the way. I'm emphasizing this because that's the same degree that back in the winter solstice of 2021 or 2020 that Jupiter and Saturn met and caused a changing of the societal and cultural from earth energy into air energy. So we have 200-year cycles of these different elements that are holding sway. And it's really based on where Saturn and Jupiter meet. And they had been meeting in earth signs for the previous 200 years. And now, for the next 200 years, they're meeting in air signs. So we have air energies dominant ideas, inspiration, technology, writing,
Mm.
communication, news, all these types of things. And that is, kind of the handshake that goes on between these planets. And now Venus entering into the same degree takes us into our values, How worthy are you to be? How prepared are you in your values to move into the future? What about our values has to change in order to support where we're going? What values that we've depended on in the past that were supported are no longer going to be supported or need to be brought into the future so that they can support us as we go on. Venus also rules money and finances, the economy. So we'll have financial changes, no doubt, no doubt in my mind that the
Mm.
financial system is going to be changing. And again, over time, but personally, how are you using your financial wizardry, right? Are you being a good steward of your resources? Are you overspending? Are you in debt? So lots of different things here because in the future, that might be something that we want to change, right? That we don't want to be in debt. It's not supportive, it's not sustainable, right? If you're always in debt from credit cards or from a deficit, spending more than what you have, or spending more than what you make, that isn't sustainable. And all of this is in service to huh, what is sustainable. And
Mm.
where it's not, you have to pivot. You've got to change, you've got to shift.
That's interesting because, Janet, not only do individuals sometimes get into financial difficulty, look at I know our government, my goodness me, they've just been spending, 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 and it isn't an endless pit. Sometimes I think they think it is.
It happens in the US too. I mean, I think I don't ever remember a time in my life when we haven't been in a deficit, a trade deficit, a financial deficit. Um, it just begs the question, well, what really is money then if we can keep running it
Mm.
into a deficit? I mean, it's a made up thing. I mean, it's made up. We made it up.
Yeah.
So how can we remake it? That would be the next question. And some of the things that you hear about with the economy in terms of what the future might bring, cryptocurrencies, the whole idea of blockchain for more security in how our money and transactions are moving through a system. Universal income. That's a big deal. That's a very future oriented, but it's also very humanitarian, which is another calling card of Aquarius energy. And I'm not saying I'm for or against it. So it's not that. It's just these are the things that are running through. Um, looking ahead at governments, I don't know that it is going to be possible in a new age to run those kinds of deficits that they're running
Mm.
or to it's even interesting to think about the number of people it takes to run a bureaucracy within the government. Like in some cases, one person could do the job, but they've got 500 people to do the job. And
Hmm.
again, not sustainable. So lots of impacts coming up in terms of finances as well. I don't know that there's actually any part of our lives that gets spared during these next transition years. But what we're really moving toward is a more heart-centered society.
Hmm.
And to do that, we have to move away from some of the usurious practices that we are engaged in right now, such as the credit card companies, the banking system,
Mm. Oh, they
mortgages,
love people in debt, don't they?
right? Because they make more money, right? They,
Absolutely.
they make more money. So it's fantastic to think about these things changing, but it also brings stress and anxiety within people as they worry about, well, what's that going to mean for me? How am I going to do that?
Mm.
Mm, yeah.
Lots of
And
questions, aren't there?
yeah, a lot of questions about it. But of course, there's nothing that we need do about any of it until it's in front of us, right?
Hmm.
We're looking at what is likely going to be here in the US, a very contentious presidential election coming up in the fall. At the
Mm.
same time, there are some very cantankerous kinds of challenges going on in the sky, aspects and planetary movements that are also very change oriented. So it should be an interesting year all the way around. And I have to keep reminding myself every day when I see the direction that a lot of governments are going to, which is more authoritarian, right? More of the
Mm-hmm.
regimes that like to control, that is a blip on the screen as a potential of initial movement of planets into Aquarius, because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So we have, the structure and the form, and let's make it organized, as well as the freedom loving part. So you can just sort of see these two planets that are co-ruling the sign of Aquarius, causing us to be in that anxiety between the old, the structured, the formatted, the authoritarian, the disciplined, and Uranian sort of freedom, liberation, awakening. Let's let go of all of the strings and ties that bind. And somewhere, somehow, we're going to have to find the middle road between all of that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be impacting governments and institutions, our personal lives, well into the future.
Right. Well, there's a lot to be aware of, Janet. I always learn so much from you. Um, to think that, I look up at the night sky and can pick out a few stars, but you get so much information from where they all are.
From where I don't know. And then, as we start to go into March, March I would say February is a month of pivoting for sure, right? This is a month for us to really be aware of what new changes are coming down. March holds the first of the eclipses for 2024. It is
Mm-hmm.
a partial solar or a lunar eclipse, so it's not one that is as, earth shaking perhaps as the next one will be. But it offers us up the new astrology or new year, right? The beginning, the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere, the autumn equinox for you in the southern hemisphere creates this 0 degrees Aries energy that generates a whole new astrological year, starts that wheel of the astrological year. And that means March to me looks like we have a lot of opportunities for newness
Mm-hmm.
and for stepping out of the old patterns, or maybe being pushed out of them, right? Depending on how each person greets that. And then we get to April, and April has a huge solar eclipse that crisscrosses the United States in an X, right? The first pattern happened in 2017 and ran from the very far northwest to the southeast. This new one coming up is going to run from the southwest up to the northeast, and it creates this X across the United States. It's like X marks the spot or X out the US. I mean, I don't even know what to think about that. But eclipses are always game changers and they really don't take prisoners. If there's a change that needs to be made, they come up during that eclipse window, which is usually about 2 to 3 weeks before, and then the 6 months after, because until the next eclipse comes up. Solar eclipse is often new beginnings. So it could be, something that um, you've been waiting for, something maybe that you didn't necessarily think you wanted, but you did get it, that kind of thing. So we have to be aware in April for the newness of things and for changes that may be ones that we didn't know we needed, maybe changes that we didn't want, but they're upon us and we got to go with flow. And then in May, something really beautiful happens, and that is the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus at 21 degrees of Taurus. So everybody out there that is a Taurian, this is a super time for you. It is a culmination point of the transit of both Jupiter and transit of Uranus moving through the sign of Taurus. And any place in your chart where you have Taurus or Venus as the ruler of Taurus, it bodes really well. Everybody has Taurus somewhere in the chart. And so we think of that as this culmination of the bounty and the boundlessness, the optimism, the growth and consciousness of Jupiter meeting up with the freedom loving, liberal, force facing planet of Uranus. And those two coming together and I think it's been since 1941 that they came together in the sign of Taurus. And before that, it was even further back, like 1100 or something like that. So it's sort of momentous. And we all know that 1941 was the beginning of the World War and or Pearl Harbor. The war actually started probably sooner than that when we got drawn in as the USA into the war. But so many other things were changing, right? That technology was moving ahead even at that time. The world was completely different after that World War than it was before. And it's amazing to see the potential. Not that I think we're headed for a world war. That is not necessarily what I'm thinking here, but the changes on the planet and how do we want to grow food better, safer?
Hmm.
How do we want to eat? Do we want to eat closer to the land, right? More vegetables and nuts and beans and things like that, getting away from meat. All of these things are big issues that are potential for that conjunction to start to bring that new awareness of how we farm, agriculture, how we use the land, how we use the water, all of these big issues coming together with these two planets that just spells to me new ways of doing it, new ways of being, safer, maybe more secure, um, safer for the planet herself, right? Better for Mother Earth. And then Jupiter moves out of Taurus in June and into actually late May and into June, moves into Gemini. So now we're looking at the potential for the educational system to start
Hmm.
noticing changes, right? From, Jupiter typically stays in a sign for a year. So he'll be in Gemini from that late May all the way until next May. And with a retrograde in there too. He does not retrograde back to Taurus though. So we'll start to see the impact of thinking change, of communication changing, of educational things changing. And really, it is the first air sign for Jupiter since the conjunction with Saturn in Aquarius in 2020. So we're elevating the air energies, right? The air energies of information, of sharing, of networking um, in the next year with Jupiter moving through Gemini. It's going to be kind of extraordinary. So, those of you who are Taurians, all of that culmination is coming in May. And then for all of you who are Geminis or air signs or have where if you know your own chart, wherever Gemini is in your chart, that's the next place of growth and expansion in later 2024 and half of 2025. So we're looking ahead. We have a lot going on that way.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's a big year.
A huge, yes, a huge year, Janet.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
certainly a year of change. I can see that big time, especially for
Yeah.
myself, because I'm doing a lot of travel, which is, I mean, I know I've traveled heaps thus far, but I haven't traveled quite as much in the one year as I'm doing this year. It'll be a fascinating time.
You'll be the world traveler.
Indeed. Yes. The
Which is a
world.
great thing, right? If that's something that you've always wanted to do, then do it, right? That's the thing.
Mm,
We cannot hold ourselves back anymore from the things that we really love, the things that we really want, because that's not that was never the plan in the first place. That was an artificially planted idea in us to hold ourselves back from what we want. We have to do our due diligence or duties and all of that. And that meant not doing what we really wanted or what we really loved. This is a year to really go all out. It's how we survive this change, this pivoting time, because each one of us needs to pivot toward living from the heart, really living from the heart. And I don't mean just in a lip service sort of way, right? Doing, actually taking steps to move towards your heart's desires, whatever that might be,
Hmm.
right? If you want a great relationship, then you've got to move toward it. You've got to do what you need to do to get there. If you want better health, then there's no time like the present to start taking steps in that direction. No
Mm.
more holding yourself back and just kind of pussyfooting around. That isn't going to work.
And the thing, Janet, is we all have those choices. Sometimes
Yes.
we might feel that we don't. We might think that we're boxed in. In actual fact, that we do have choices. It's a matter of looking and, okay, what is it that I can do to move from where I might be? You know, if a person feels stuck. There was a friend messaging me this morning, and she had a bit of a health scare last year and was told that she had to lose weight. And she's done a remarkable job. And I think good on her that she values her health sufficiently
Mm.
to take the steps that were required, which meant leaving a lot of delightful things out of her diet and taking up a bit more exercise than probably she was doing. But she has done remarkably well. And
Yep.
so,
She
when we,
pivoted.
yes, yes,
That's the whole point. She pivoted. She moved herself in a new direction and went all for it, put her heart into it, her
mm,
soul into it.
yeah.
So even for those people out there who feel like they're in a box and they have no choices, that's BS. We always have choices. Maybe you have to pivot and turn around and look behind you. Maybe you have to look over the top of the box that you've put yourself in, because there's always a way around. And you know what I tell people all the time is sometimes the universe is putting us in a position that feels like it's a box, like we're stuck. But in reality, it is a pause point. Maybe we have to integrate something before we can move forward. Uh, Maybe it's a time for you to just rest, right? That there's no energy of taking action yet. Because if there was, you would see it. You would be like,
Mm,
oh, okay. And then sometimes you have to go over, around, under. You're never really in that stuck place. If you are, and we all get there at times, I've been stuck in my life, trust me, then you're not living according to your human design type and strategy, you could say, or through your astrology or your soul's plan. There's something that's not quite um, in alignment, and
mm.
it's time for you to pivot, turn a half a turn, a quarter turn, 360, or not 360, you'd be back where you started, 180.
Yes. Yeah, we don't want
Um,
to do
yeah,
that.
no, no, no. But anyway, and it is a time where there are a lot of people that do feel stuck. I hear about them all the time. I get notes from people, messages that, I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. What is my life purpose? Where am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? Um, so we can all get there,
Mm,
but it is not that you are stuck. You're at a pause point. And in that pause point, you have choices. What do I do next? Well, maybe I just take a break. Maybe I travel the world for a few months and then I come back and then see what else is opening up for me at that time.
mm.
So those everybody's being kind of pushed into that at this point. And I love that your friend decided, hey, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to
Mm.
exercise. I'm going to eat better. She pivoted.
I'll have to
So
tell her. Good on. I admire her persistence and yeah, very cool. And the thing is, Janet, yes, we all have those attributes. Sometimes we tend to forget or they're pushed down so far, we don't realize that we have choices and we can be anything we want to be.
absolutely. But here's the way I always think of it. If it has come into your mind that you want something or want to go somewhere or do something or be something different, then it's absolutely possible for you, or it never would have occurred to you to do it or to have it or to want it. If you're holding a desire for something, it is absolutely doable. It's not out of the realm of possibility. All that's required next is for you to really decide, do I really want that? And if I really want that, what steps am I willing to take to get there or to get that and or to have that in my life? And then taking the action steps to get it, right?
Mm.
There's always something that we have to do. It can't just stay up here in our heads. We have to do it because we live in a 3D planet, right? The dimension of Earth. I can't just make it so because I think about it.
Now, Janet, Pauline says, do a show on the move on location would be interesting. I'm not quite
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Pauline,
Pauline, tell us a little more about that.
yeah.
Like
Mm,
the move.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, maybe people physically moving or something. I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what
Yeah.
she
But
means.
but
I
tell us.
yes. And Anayah via the angel code has wished Stephanie Coy a happy birthday. I do.
Oh,
I was
oh,
trying to work out earlier because Stephanie said my birthday month, but I wasn't sure whether she was meaning February or and whatever you were
referring to at the
referring
time.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, Pauline saying, do a show on the move on location for Annette. Oh, I think I know where I'm traveling to. I know where I'm coming back to.
Yeah. So you're
Mm.
not moving as such, or she's
No,
not moving.
no,
She's just going to
I'm
be traveling for the
yes.
next several months. So
Yeah.
those all those locations, that would be tedious to try to figure out. Oh Lord.
Well, part of that excitement, Janet, is the fact that I'm actually going to catch up with you in Seattle. I just
I
think,
know.
wow, after
I
all of
can
these years seeing each other on the screen, we're actually going to be able to hug each other.
oh, I know. I
So,
can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait for that. So that's part of your fun travel, right? That you get to come to where I am. And luckily I'm not going to where you aren't at the same time. So at least not that I'm aware of. So that's good. I'll be here
sure.
waiting for you. Oh gosh.
Thank you, thank you.
Um,
And Jacqueline said, "Oh, I made it before it ended." And
hi, Jacqueline.
uh, Carol joined us earlier and said she'd missed half, she'd have to catch up. Of course, that's the beauty of these shows on Angel Heart Radio. And Janet, I know there's so much information that you give us. It's wonderful to think that, yes, we can go back and re-listen, re-watch if we're a little unclear about
Yes,
or what
absolutely. That is like the fun part of technology, right? That we can do this in the first
it's.
place.
Yes, yeah.
And then we can do this and re-listen to it later. So I mean, like this broadcast is going out around the world. I mean, I can't even think of how many miles away you are from me at this point in time. And here we are
Well,
connected.
that's right. Yes, I mean I'm down under on the bottom of towards the bottom of Australia, and here you are up towards the top of the USA. So I mean, yeah, there's
We are
quite
as
a
far away as we
distance
could
in
be just about.
between.
Yeah. But look at how clear our voices are coming across. I mean, that is a testament to what technology can do in its highest and best forms. And that's what we want to remember, not to be afraid of the technological advancements as they come at us, but to, work to refine them to the point where we can have a stability in like this, in a stable environment where we can this conversation. And that comes with time. It comes from not
Mm.
being afraid to try it. Think about the first day you ever tried to do a broadcast.
Anayah and I laugh about that all the time.
Yeah, how scary was it? And then I remember we were doing uh radio on like Blog Talk Radio where nobody was really seeing us. We were, behind the scenes. They were just hearing our
Yes.
voice. And then all of a sudden it was video. I remember how frightening that was, right? Like, oh my God, am I going
Yeah.
to say or do something in the moment that was really bad? It was funny, just those things. And now it's like, oh, it's a breeze, right? I
Yeah.
just come on and do my thing, and it's just like any other day. So technology does tend to push our boundaries a bit, at least in the initial process of learning the technology, and then it becomes mainstream and then it becomes like, oh yeah, right? That was so 2020 and it's
It did.
2024.
Yes. 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 Now, Carol has said she always loves it when you're on, Janet, and
Oh, thank you.
she may consider another reading. Last year in January session, uh, last year's session in January was amazing. So that really brings me to the point, Janet, that people can reach out to you
Mm.
via your website, which is very nicely on the screen.
Lot there behind
And
me.
yes, isn't that so cool? So they can request a reading like Carol did, and you do free charts, which is very
Yeah.
generous of you.
So
And
right
you
now
will,
on my website that people can actually get a course free, a mini course on the human design aspect of the new year. It's right
mm,
there when you go to living-astrology.com. It'll say get your mini course. You can also get a discounted astrology of 2024 reading. Right now it's $89 until the end of February. After that, I'm not doing any more. I mean, if you buy it by the 29th, I will still do the reading, but I cut it off in February. It just seems ridiculous in March to be doing a New Year's reading, but it's okay. And that's available, like I said, until the end of the month, plus the ability to get your free astrology chart and free human design chart. I mean, what's not to like, right?
you're very, very generous. Now, and you do your own shows. Is it Monday and Friday US time?
Yes. Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And then, like today, I also did a morning broadcast. Once a month, I meet with the author of the Energy Almanac, Tam Vayu, and we get together and talk about the month ahead. So this morning,
Hmm.
she and I got together and talked about February. So the last Wednesday of the month, I am on that. Then on Wednesday, that first, it's usually my last day of the month. Then I come on here with Angel Heart Radio, or um, so typically, though, 2 days a week, you can get that. And those go to YouTube and Facebook. So just like your shows are on and anybody can get them anytime, you can get back um, broadcasts and pick up where you left off. If you started live and you had to go, you can do that. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I want people to realize that, especially people who tune into you here on Angel Heart Radio, here's a change for you people.
But
Get on to Janet's website and tune in to Janet either on YouTube or Facebook. And the thing is, your shows are earlier in the day for you, which means they might be a tad early for the people here in New Zealand and Australia. But of course, we can listen or watch at a later time to suit ourselves. So there's no
Yeah.
excuses. There are all of these fabulous opportunities, people. So let's seize the moment, or just do it, as that gorgeous Nike. Weren't they clever, Janet?
Yeah.
The Nike ad,
Yeah.
saying that has really become part of our language, I guess.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. Nike, right? Just do it.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that, you're right. I think it's like, I don't know, middle of the night for you guys, actually, when I'm on air live. It's 8 a.m. my time, so it's still
Sure.
like late in the night for you guys.
No,
But
it's
those are,
oh, is it? 8
I,
a.m. I get very confused. I see
well,
it as you're 5 hours ahead of me, but a day behind.
okay, it doesn't matter. It's not the right timing. But
So
those shows
if
are
so that would
broadcast.
mean that your 8 a.m. show would be 3 a.m. for us. Yes, middle of the night.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get up and watch my show because it's the time. But the show is immediately on YouTube, and so once you got up, you could go and listen to it.
Exactly. Yes, we can tune in at 8 a.m. or whatever time we choose to be up. So
And important for you, your listeners in Australia, as this is our first and last show for 2024.
I know.
It's so funny. Like pivot, pivot. So if
Yes.
your astrological wisdom and so forth will be from a different place, at least for the next several months.
Yes, indeed. So that's why, please, people, tune into Janet else elsewhere,
Yeah,
because
it's all good. It's all good.
ah,
But
well,
I'm going to miss you.
thank you, thank you, thank you. My goodness me, how time passes so quickly, especially
Definitely
when
it
we're
does.
having fun. So
Yeah. Good. I'm glad we were having fun. There was a lot to talk about. I'm so used to talking about this stuff that sometimes I think, well, am I using, language that everybody can understand? Hopefully everybody kind of understood um, what, in the big picture that we were talking about. And just understand that change is upon you. Go with it or fight it. Your choice.
indeed. All right, there are a couple of messages here for
Okay.
you. Anaya has written to you, and Robin says, "Thank you, thank you. Blessings."
Thank you.
And oh, and thank you, Christine. Hope you enjoy wonderful travels. Well, I'm very excited. Thanks to you both. And Carol says, indeed, very generous, Janet.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, I'm a friend of yours on Facebook, so I can watch all the pictures as you travel the world. I'm excited about that. I have to live vicariously through you.
it's
Oh,
that's one of the beauties of Facebook, because we can all travel with our
yep.
friends and associates on Facebook. So
Yeah, absolutely. So
very,
have a
very
great time.
fortunate.
Safe travels to you.
Thank
And
you, thank you.
I'm sure I'll see you on Facebook.
Yes, yes, I'm looking forward to that. All
Yeah.
right, and to all of our wonderful Angel Heart Radio people, I'm back next week with Marnie. So please come and join us. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful time. Make each day count. Make sure that you're um, finding magic and creating magic. Until
Finding your
next.
pivot point.
Okie dokie. Mwah. Thank you,
Mwah. Bye,
everyone. Thank
everybody.
you,
Thank you,
Janet.
Annette.
Pleasure. Bye
Bye.
bye.